what I would say is if you want to do lease options in the state in which you're in, find somebody who's doing lease options really well.
Yes.
Find out how they do it. Make sure that it's an ethical person, that they're really helping people buy properties, and then learn from that person how to do lease options, because each state has its own certain...
Hello, you're listening to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast, presented by Brandon Elliott. This show will be going over all aspects of real estate investing and is intended to educate, motivate, and prepare you to take action on your first or next real estate investment. For more information, please visit BrandonElliottInvestments.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast. I am your host, Mr. Brandon Elliott. I'm excited today. We got Shiloh in the house over in Arizona, been started in real estate back in 2010, has a therapy background for children and family and families in general, but really focuses on his real estate journey with lease options. And so we're going to dive into that today. Also, in Costa Rica, started off originally doing some missionary work, fell in love with the area, and now holds real estate investing retreats for beginners and experts at different times, right? But there's power behind getting, a dozen or 24 people together in a beautiful location. I've actually done this down in Tulum, and there is something special and unique and like a family bond and everything, but really breakthroughs as well, left and right. And so I can definitely relate to this because I've experienced it, but excited to hear more about your journey and how the heck you got here. So what's up, Shiloh? How we doing today, brother?
Doing great. Really, really well. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. So anybody out there that doesn't know who you are, where you're from, what you're up to, and how you got here today, do you mind just giving that 10,000 foot view for the listeners?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Shiloh Lundahl, and I do a few different things. My background is in social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Arizona, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. And that actually is what led me to real estate investing. So I wanted to be a good social worker. I wanted to really help people. And I knew that getting, training and going and getting not just certified, but really learning how to do therapy really, really well would be helpful for the people that I would work with, right? And so I wanted to go to these trainings, but they were expensive to go to, and then I wouldn't be working while I went to the training. And so I'm like, well, how can I earn some extra money in order to be able to go to some of these trainings? And so my wife and I had our fourth child at the time. And so she'd be nursing in the evenings. And so we would watch a show while she was nursing. And it was one of those HGTV flipping shows, right? And so we'd watch the show and I would see what they were doing. And then they made this profit. I'm like, we could do that. Let's do that. Let's you and I do that. Yeah. So, and we're in Arizona, and Arizona's kind of a mecca for real estate investing. And so we went out there and we started to try to do some flips, right? And we earned...
What year was this?
This was back in 2014. I called a buddy of mine and who I knew that was a real estate investor, and I said, hey, I want to do a deal with you. Yeah. So he invited me to come and be a money lender on that deal. So I lent some money on that deal, and I got to be a part of it, and I gained like $13,000 from that deal. And that was like life-changing for me. Yep. So it completely changed my paradigm, and I thought, I'm going to go and do this. And so I went out and I did another deal, and I lost $5,000. Yeah.
It flips a little bit then when you're doing it solo on your own. Yeah.
And so when that happened, there were people that were doing these trainings and things like that. And I actually went and signed up for one of these guru trainings. Cool. And so I went to, it was a $40,000 training, and then we paid for additional coaching and ended up paying about $75,000 for, a bunch of things.
Was this Fortune Builders back in the day, or what was it?
It wasn't. This was called Advanced Real Estate Education. That was the name of it. Okay. And it was like pretty much any other ones, right? Sure. So I went there and I did that, but I gained some really good relationships through that program. Yeah. And that really helped me because like one of the trainers was also from Arizona, and I reached out to him, and he gave me the number to his banker. And so I called his banker and I said, hey, he gave me your number. I need some help refinancing some properties. And he refinanced like 17 properties for us.
Let's go.
And it was awesome. Yeah. So, and that just really kind of springboarded us upward and onward. And so like my first deal was back in 2010. I held that. I bought it on market, didn't have any real estate background, but I bought it. I rented it out to some people that we knew. Then we ended up selling it to them in 2015. So it was this 5-year hold, but that's where I got the money for this program. So
Okay.
we gave like 50,000 from that deal. We put it into the program, and then we just started to learn. And then I connected with that buddy again that I did that first deal with, or not the first one, but the first one in 2015. And he and I ended up starting to do more deals together. But what was going on is the margins for these flips were getting smaller and smaller.
Sure.
And so, because there was more and more people jumping into the market and competition was getting pretty bad. And so we thought, well, what can we do? And we didn't really want to be landlords where, people would call us and, ask us to come fix things all the time. So we go to a 3-day training on lease options that was done here in Arizona by a guy named John Burley, and fantastic training. And he's not one of those that, spends 3 days telling you, hey, if you do my bigger program, then I'll really teach you.
Yeah.
He gave us a ton of great information those 3 days. Of course, he does have, a continuing education program after that. But those 3 days that we were with him, we just learned a ton, and we were able to take a lot of those concepts and then add it to what we were doing. And so we've shifted from doing flips to doing lease options. And what we found is that when we did these, lease options, we were able to get better tenants.
Yep.
They gave us an option fee, and it wasn't a very big option fee. It was usually like $3,000 to $5,000, and that gave them the right to buy the property. And at first, we were doing like 5-year lease options. Then we went to 4. Then we went to 3. And so that's what we do now is we do these 3-year lease options. And because really, the lease option is a really awesome program for a lot of people, or for like a certain type of person, right?
Yes.
So if you have really great credit and you got enough money to qualify for a loan, you just go and you buy a property, you get a loan, boom, you're done. But
Sure.
if you're in a situation where maybe your credit isn't great right now because of maybe you went through a divorce, or a foreclosure, or maybe a bankruptcy like 4 or 5 years ago, but you're really doing well now, it still may be hard for you to get a loan. And so if you need maybe a few more years to save up the down payment or to make sure your credit is where it needs to be to get a loan, then a lease option can be a really great opportunity, because you can get into a place where you want to live. You can kind of customize it to you and your family.
Yep.
And then you just are kind of working towards getting that loan so that you can exercise the option and you can get the house. And you don't have to worry about your landlord saying, okay, I'm going to sell the house to somebody, you guys need to move out. And that's what a lot of people in Arizona were experiencing, because, prices had come up and people had been in a house for 3 or 4 years. And then all of a sudden their landlord was saying, just wanted to let you know, we're not going to be renewing your lease. So, just prepare yourself to move out in the next couple months. And that's really hard for people that really they don't want to move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's hard for them. But then the other thing is, like, it worked out really, really well, or works out really well for people that are like new business owners. They have good income and they're in a business that they're familiar with, they're doing well with. But unless they get 2 years of tax returns,
Sure.
it's really hard for them to get a bank loan. And so they're a really good candidate as well for lease options. And then there are other people as well. So we started in 2017 to buy these properties and basically lease option them to tenant buyers. And then we just kept going and kept going and kept going. And we were able to buy the properties well under market value. And then we were able to, get them fixed up, increase the value, and then refinance them and not have to leave a lot of money into a lot of these deals. But then I also learned, because we did that for a while, but then we ran out of our own money because we did have to leave some money into these deals.
Yeah.
And, we had, a lot of these loans, but the loans that we were getting at the time were like for 65 or 70% of the value. So we were having to leave a lot of this money in there. And so I went to...
Why is that, if you don't mind me asking? Why so much equity?
That is a great question. So when you buy a property and you get a really good deal, it sounds like a great idea, right?
Yeah.
And you want to buy a property and get a great deal.
Yes.
Well, the banks, they don't look at it so much as a really good deal, and they don't look at you as a savvy entrepreneur or business owner. They look at the situation as, well, we want you to lose something if this doesn't go well.
They want skin in the game. Yeah.
They want skin in the game. And so if you buy a property, like let's say your neighbor, he he liked you and you had a great relationship. Something happens back east. He needs to leave. And so he just wants to sell you his property and says, hey, you know what? You've been great. I really don't need a whole lot from this sale. The property's worth $200,000. If you give me $100,000, I'll just give it to you. I don't have time to put it on the market. Need some repairs and things like that. If you'll just give me $100,000, we'll call it good. We'll just take care of it at the title company tomorrow. Well, that sounds awesome, right?
Yeah.
You get this property that, should be worth $200,000. You can buy it for $100,000. Well, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then you go to the bank and you say, hey, I want to get this property financed. They're like, well, great. Well, you bought it yesterday. That's awesome. What we'll do is we'll give you 80% of what you bought it for. Or if you rehab it, then we'll give you 75% what you bought it for plus what you rehabbed it for. And so if you're like, well, the property is in good shape, I don't really need to rehab it, but I don't know why you'd only give me 80% of what I bought it for when the property appraised at 200. Why would you only, give me?
Is it just a seasoning period? They needed you to season it for 6 months first?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they may want you to season it. Some banks will say 6 months. Other banks will say
a year.
A year.
Yep.
For one bank, say 2 years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
it depends on the dollar amount and so forth. Were you talking to big banks or were you talking to regional banks or small local credit unions? Sometimes the small local credit unions can get a lot more creative and usually work with the human being more than, it's not so black and white. They'll get a little bit more creative typically.
Yeah. I need to work more with some credit unions. I've just worked with a lot of different banks.
The big banks, yeah.
Yeah, the big banks.
Yeah, so the big banks get really predatory almost. Like they want to get some money. They like good deals, but they like even better deals when you got skin in the game and everything else. And it's kind of a little crazy. But
what's interesting is the banks will charge you according to their risk, right? Because they do this risk profile.
Sure.
And depending on where you're at is what interest rate you get.
Yep.
Now, what happens though is if a bank can come in and have a 40% loan on you, that's a really low risk loan.
Yep.
But they will still keep it at a certain amount. You know what I mean? They'll lower it when it's, the risk is lower, but I mean, they're not going to lower it a ton.
Sure.
And so it's frustrating because you're like, hey, this is only a 40% loan. And so what I'm trying to say is that that's kind of how banks work. They want you to have skin in the game. And so the way in which we were buying it back then, we had these loans where we were just leveraged like 60% or something, 65%. So then what I did is I started networking a lot with people. I'd go out to lunch with an investor. Like I tried to do that every week and it worked out pretty well. And I was learning and, taking people that were doing well in real estate or at my same level, but I was just kind of networking and connecting. So this one guy I took out once and I kind of told him my situation. He's like, well, why don't you just get a second position note on that property?
Yep.
Like, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, you get, somebody that has money, maybe a private money lender. They give you money. You create a deed of trust for that property, right? So then they're in the second position and you give them interest. And I'm like, I had never even thought about that before.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Creative real estate, baby.
Right. So that helped us leverage the properties up to about 75, sometimes 80%, right?
Cool.
So now we didn't have to leave a ton of money into the deals. And then over the next little while, as we did that, we were able to continue to grow. And so we went from like 17 in 2017, 2018 came and we got our properties up to like 81 properties. So we bought maybe a small mobile home park and then a bunch of single family homes. And then the next year, 2019, it went higher. And then in 2020, we got all the way up to 200 properties. And that was with about 100 in mobile home parks because we have about 6 small mobile home parks. We have about 80 single family homes, some multifamily, I have a commercial building and things like that. And so that's kind of what really kind of helped us grow so much.
Wow.
And because the values went up so much, we were able to refinance so much, pay off all of our seconds.
Yeah.
Continue to, stabilize, grow. And that's kind of how we built a company that ultimately after, 6 years, it was worth like $8 million.
Let's go.
It was awesome. And it wasn't just me. It was me with a good partner, friend of mine. And so we worked hard. We didn't take any cash out of the company for the first like 5 years. And it was just awesome. It was awesome that we were able to build so much. And so that's my story.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
I initially got in because I wanted to become a better therapist, but I really enjoyed doing it. And I like to see things, get beautified and help people get into homes and everything like that. And so I got this situation where it really worked out really well. So
I love that. So when it comes down to the therapy still, are you still doing that?
Yes. So this is my
Okay.
therapy office.
Okay, great.
So I have a couple of sessions later on today. So
Okay,
I have about 15 sessions a week, sometimes a little bit more. But then in the mornings, I'm usually at home doing real estate, looking at wholesale deals or doing a bunch of different things. I do a lot of different things.
Yeah, I love it. Shiloh, so talk to me when you're doing these lease options. First off, when you refinance a lot of these projects, did you take advantage of the rates when they were lower? Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So I got a lot of rates that were in the fours at the time.
Let's go. Not bad at all. That's great. And then so afterwards, you were able to pay off all the investors. What about these lease options though? Like, especially in your market when it just kept on going up and up and up, were you structuring something within the lease option to be able to capitalize on like, hey, if they don't execute on that lease option within the first couple of years, the equity is going up, it makes it very enticing for them at some point if you don't increase along with it, if that makes sense, for the equity.
Right. So it was interesting. What you're saying is true. So basically, the way that we've structured the lease options at the beginning is because we were just doing like a 3-year lease option.
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning, we did 5, then we did 4, then we did 3, right? So, but when we got to the point where we were doing 3-year lease options, the way we would value the property is we'd say, okay, what is it appraised for today?
Yep.
And then we would just add 10% to that. Because if you look at, historically, a market appreciating 3% per year, that's a pretty conservative, normal kind of, what do you call it, appreciation rate, right?
Yeah.
So let's say we bought the property. To give you kind of some examples, back in the day in some of the markets that we were in, let's say we got a property for $100,000. Let's say we were able to put $40,000 into it, and now the property is worth $200,000, right? So with that, we're all in $140,000, property's worth $200,000, and then with extra, closing costs and things like that, so we're into a $150,000, it's worth $200,000. A good 75%, LT, 75% is our all in to the value of the property, right?
Sure. Yep.
So that would be like a perfect kind of Burr model where you're able to get all of your money. You still created $50,000. Well, what we would do is we would then sell the property for not $200,000, but we'd sell it for $220,000.
Yep.
Okay. And we would lock in that price. And that was great because we're like, hey, look, we're not going to need to pay realtor fees or a lot of the closing costs.
Yep.
And they're not going to ask for like concessions. They're not going to ask for us to do repairs because they're accepting it as is. They've lived in it for the last 3 years. If there's something wrong, to prove they did it, right? And so we're excited about that. But then what happened was COVID, and then this hyperinflationary thing occurred where all of a sudden values didn't go to 220, they went to 280.
Yeah.
Right? They just went, way past what we thought. Values increased by like 50%. So a $200,000 home could be valued at like $300,000. It was crazy.
And so some of that, like example that you gave, the 3%, that's kind of like the nationwide average versus, market specific as well. You could see 20% yearly for some of these last couple of years in many cases, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what happened was some of these people were exercising their options and they were able to, walk into like $50,000 of equity. We had some guy walk into 80 and I think one walked into 100.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. And so
good for them. I mean, it's a win-win at the end of the day. It's one of those things. It's a small, I wouldn't say learning lesson to it, but to a certain degree, right? That like moving forward to increase as you go potentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so anybody that followed with the contract was able to exercise their option, right? Yeah. So that means they're paying on time, right? They're living in the home still. They didn't move out, have renters in there, and then just come back and say, okay, I want to buy it. They were following the contract. Well, when we saw that, I went to a mastermind weekend, and this is where you and I met. I was at the Avengers Mastermind group.
Yep.
And so I talked with Chris Crone. It was like a 2-minute conversation, just talking to him about the way I was structuring the lease options. And he said, you should create it so it floats with the market because we don't know exactly what's going to happen with prices here. And so you probably should create something that'll float with the market. So I switched and I started creating lease options that rather than just the
standard
price, I did some floating ones. And the way that I compensated for it was I said, okay, the option fee is, $3,000. You can buy it for the $220 amount or what it appraises for, whichever's higher. And then when you go to exercise the option, I'll bring in that $3,000 you gave me, and I can help you with the closing costs at that point.
Nice. Now, did you feel like there was any struggles or difficulties educating the end buyer as they are jumping into this opportunity?
No, not really. I mean, it's a pretty simple concept.
Right.
You say, hey, I'm not looking for a regular tenant. I'm looking for somebody that wants to become a homeowner.
Yes.
So you're welcome to come in, stay in this property. You'll be leasing it from me for the next 3 years. And during that time, I can connect you with a banker that will help you get your credit where it needs to be so that you can exercise the option and just work on, saving some money, work on getting your credit where it needs to be. And then when it's there, just give me a call. And then, give me a call, send me, actually in the option agreement says you need to send me a certified letter, right? Because people can say, oh, I want to exercise it. And then you're like, okay, when? And then you can't get a hold of them. And then it's just like, so actually going and writing it, sending a certified says, I'm serious about this. I want to exercise it.
Yes.
And so when we got that, we said, okay, let's do this. And then they exercised the option and it worked out great. And, historically, I've heard that about 15% of people will exercise their options. I think with us, it was about 30. And there's some other things I'm doing right now to increase it. I'd like to get it to about 50 or above.
That's what I'd like to do. Love that. And some of the reasons why I haven't done it in the past is for some of these percentages, like the statistics that I've seen. But I've always been very curious on it. And I love the idea. I love empowering other people that, felt like they never even had an opportunity for this and showing them that they actually can. And what it's done for you and me, real estate investing has been life-changing in so many ways. So giving them that little taste is amazing. But seeing it, I've almost felt internally like, is it just a creative, more favorable side for the investor to a certain degree?
Right, that's a good question.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think that there's I'll be on Bigger Pockets posting different things. Whenever I mention lease options, I get people saying lease options are bad and you shouldn't do that. And I'm so confused because my experience with them had been really positive.
Yeah.
And I got trained by somebody who did them very, very well. It helped a ton of people.
Yeah.
So my only experience has been an ethical experience with lease options, right?
Yeah.
But other people may use it in order to take advantage of somebody.
Yep.
So the way that we set it up in order for that not to happen is in order to be able to get into the property, you have to make at least 3 times the monthly rent.
Love it.
And that's an important part because if you make 3 times the monthly rent, then the likelihood of you being able to qualify is really high.
Yes.
Because you can afford the payment. So there's that aspect. Then the other aspect is we can connect them with loan officers. And if you're connected with a loan officer and you go to a loan officer and you say, I would like to buy this property within the next 3 years, what do I need to do?
Yep.
Then they're going to tell you what you need to do and then just do that.
Yeah, just do it. Just do the simple things, right? Like I'm connecting you with the resources. Yeah.
It's just the likelihood of you qualifying is very, very high. Just ask them what to do that, and then you're most likely going to exercise the option. In fact, we've had some people that we've worked with more than once. They came in, they bought a property from me, and then they called me back like a year later that said, hey, we want a bigger property. Do you have anything that we're looking to sell ours, and we'd love to do the lease option with you again. And so I've had a lot of people reach back out to me that have exercised the option and saying, hey, we'd like to do another option with you because we want to upgrade or whatever.
I love that.
Really good.
So when it comes down to, because you're going full into it, like, hey, being super transparent and bold here, like, I want you to buy this home from me, and I'm going to do everything that I can take in the next couple of years to be able to make sure that you qualify for it. And so is it heartbreaking in certain circumstances when, you're double what the average is or more right now, but you want to get it higher? Like, why can't we get to 90%? Why are we having so many people fall out of it? Has there ever been any circumstances that you're like, hey, they really want it, something's falling apart, they're not doing what the program, if you will, is like set up to succeed?
So that's a great question. For the most part, well, let me say it this way. Not everybody that enters into the lease option exercises it for different reasons. Okay. So we've had a lot of people come in and they gave the option money because they thought at the time, I want to live here. Yeah. And I want this to be my home. Yep. Then within the next couple of years, their circumstances change. Yep. And they have moved back east, or they have said, hey, I loved this property, it was great, but I want to move closer into town, or I want to do whatever.
Yep.
And they're appreciative for the opportunity to having lived there and everything like that.
And the option. But after experiencing it, it's just different.
Well, but then also, they don't have to sell the property when they move.
Yeah.
So the thing that happens is when you go into a property and you buy the property, you have to spend money to close on that property. Yep. And then when you go to sell the property again, the person that bought the property now pays realtors.
Yep.
And so those two transactions are pretty pricey. They're way more pricey than an option fee.
Yes.
Well, than the option fees that I have. Again, my option fees are pretty low. They're $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000. And the reason that they're low is because when somebody comes into the property, I just want to attract a really good tenant. I want somebody that wants to go in there. I guess kind of like the bank, I want somebody with some skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
So I want somebody to come in there that is more likely going to buy the property. What we've found, and we've done it before where we've split up the lease option, or we split up the option fee and things like that, those people are much less likely going to exercise the option. The people that are resourceful, that have some savings or have the ability to come up with some money to get into the option, are much more likely to be a better tenant. They'll be able to more likely to be able to pay rent, and more likely going to exercise the option.
Yes.
So that is more kind of a weeding out of the difference between people that may not be able to pay rent all the time and people that are more likely going to be able to. And then not only that, but then if they were to leave the property, and let's say, they didn't destroy the property, but you go in there, they've been there for 3 years, and you're like, maybe they had a lot of kids and there's writing on the wall and carpet.
Yep.
Maybe you had a pet, so the carpet is bad. And so the reason I like the option fee is because I can go in there with $3,000 or $4,000, make the property really nice again. Like, let's say they decided to move, and that's fine. And I go in there, I make the property nice again for $3,000 or $4,000, and the next person that comes in pays me an option fee of $3,000 or $4,000. I recoup that money, and so it makes it so turnovers are not really expensive for me.
So
are you
including a security deposit, or no? That's the option fee, and the option fee is obviously not refundable.
Yeah, so it's a good question. If the property is really nice and I fix it up really nice, then I'll have a security deposit as well.
Okay.
And some of the properties, I purchased, I'm like, wow, this is a fixer-upper. And so like this one about 2 weeks ago, I put it on Facebook Marketplace and I said, hey, this might be a deal for you. It might work out well for you. I got a property. It needs a lot of work to it. It needs a new roof. It needs, some updates to the kitchen. It was a manufactured home. I said, there's parts of the floor that are a little soft. If you want to take on a project, then, I think it's going to be worth about $195,000 if it's fixed up nice. I'll give it to you for $165,000. You can come in, you can do the work yourself, and then you keep all of the equity above the $165,000. So that one's a fixed at $165,000, and then anything they do over and above that, they can still buy it for $165,000, even if it appraises for $195,000.
Okay, I love it. Awesome. And then for that
one, I didn't have them give me a security deposit because whatever they're going to do is going to be better than what it is now.
Yeah. That makes sense. Is there anything else that you would disqualify for like pets or anything, or?
We're okay with pets because we're planning on them buying the property.
Yep.
So, and because they gave us the option fee, if they do leave, again, we can go in, fix it up with $3,000 or $4,000. You can usually do a pretty good turn, trade out the carpet. If there's carpet in there, fix things that pets may have damaged. So that's a good amount to fix things up that on an average property.
That makes sense. I love it. Talk to me about how were you actually, and how are you marketing this to find this particular avatar?
So I have a website, which is ArizonaLeaseOptions.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so on that website, I put the current lease options that are available. And then what I'll do is I'll go on to Zillow and I'll post it on Zillow under the rent portion because people are looking for rentals. And then in the rentals section, I say, this isn't a regular rental. This is a lease with the option to buy rental for people that are looking to become homeowners. I've worked with dozens of people and helping them become homeowners, and I can help you too, blah, 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 right?
Nice.
So I explain that there. And so somebody's looking for a rental, but they read that, they're like, that's what I want to do. So I get probably the majority from Zillow, but then I also put it up on Facebook Marketplace. And there are some places that are better than others. Like if you get like a town that has its own like buy sell, page, putting up there, I find is better than putting up on the real estate pages. Because you say, hey, this is a house that I have. I'm looking for somebody that wants to be a homeowner. I'm doing it on a lease option. I'll help you become a homeowner. And I mean, I still get, people going on there and trolling and saying, this is a scam. I'm like, in what way is this a scam?
Yeah. Is that your experience or is that just your thoughts? Come on.
Should I tell all the people that I've helped to become homeowners that, gee, man, sorry, it's a scam?
It's a scam. Look out. Yeah.
So, and I mean, you're going to get that with everything. But that's where I found is the best on Facebook Marketplace and on Zillow. And then I just direct them to my website. And so they go on the website and they can see the pictures. There's usually a video walkthrough there.
Yeah.
I have the numbers and everything so they can see, and they can see if this is what they want. I also have a video that my buddy and I created that explains how the lease option works. It's like a 5-minute video, goes through the whole thing so that you can watch it, you can understand it.
That's
what we want. We want people to really understand what they're getting into so that they can, make a good decision and say, yeah, this is what I want to do. I think this would be a good option for me.
During the 3 years of the lease option, are they responsible for their own maintenance, or do they call you as the landlord to handle those?
Most maintenance.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that every property that I own, that somebody's living in, is functional.
Sure.
So if there's a situation that comes up, like with a serious plumbing issue, that we didn't foresee because we didn't live in the property. We got everything ready to go. They moved in there, and within a week or two, they're like, hey, the plumbing's like completely backed up, and we're going to go in there. We're going to make sure that that's working. So make sure the roof is working, the electrical, the HVAC, the plumbing, all of those major things.
Hot water tank.
I mean, that's like $1,000.
Yeah, I know. So that's something they would handle, right?
Yeah. When they come in, the water tank is working.
Yeah. Right. You're not leaving them on the last thread, right?
But like, let's say they've been in there for 2 years and like, hey, my water tank went out.
Yeah.
And I'll say, okay, got it.
Here's a contact.
Yeah. I say, what would you like to do? We can send some contacts your way, or, are you going to pay for it? Well, I can come in, I can take care of that. But if I do that, it's going to be about $1,000. I'd like to go ahead and shift the strike price, the option strike price, to $1,000 more so that I can recoup that cost later on. Because when you go to exercise the option, I'll ask them, are you still working towards exercising the option? And they're like, yeah, I am. Okay, great. I can take care of it if you need me to. And then we'll just increase the option price by $1,000. And that way I'll just get reimbursed. Because when you exercise the option, you're getting a new water tank that should last you for a long, long time. So that's how I usually take care of it. If it's something I need to come in and fix, then we usually just add it to the option. If it's been like a year or two since they've been in the property and now there's this big item, then we'll just add it on.
What if it takes longer than 3 years? Is there a deadline, or do they ask for extensions? Is there options for that?
So yeah, like at the very end, and if they really want to do the option, I do my very best to help them do the option. If they say, hey, can you give us a couple more months? Then I'd say, okay, let me talk with the loan officer. And so then I'll ask the loan officer, hey,
the probability. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And because my goal is to have them exercise the option. And the reason being is because I know some people are like, no, just keep the property and keep. No, the reason being is if I can get them to exercise the option within a 3-year period of time, I get my biggest gain at that point.
Yep.
Keeping it longer, yes, I'll have more appreciation and debt pay down. But
typically a diminishing return, though, to a certain degree, right?
When it comes to your cash on cash return, when it comes to, basically your return, when you have more money into something, the more equity you have, the return on equity just goes lower over time. So
you want to move money around. Like you want to move it. That's what it is.
Exactly. If I can get them to exercise it, then I can redeploy that money quicker.
Yep.
And again, I'm not paying realtor fees.
Yep.
I'm not paying closing costs, and I've been able to sell it to them for higher than what it appraised for when they got into it. So all of those things, I would do the very best if they exercise the option within 2 to 3 years every single time.
Come on. Yep.
And so I am more motivated to try to help them be able to do that.
For sure. I guess. So talk to me, this just sounds amazing. I love it. I'm like getting all excited. Like, God, I'm starting to sell off some of my properties over in Ohio, but I really should have did some of this. But talk to me, like, what is the downside behind this? Is there any at all that, I mean, you've helped out a lot of people, you've had a lot of properties. I'm sure there's been some learning curves along the way, or something that you're like,
Well,
is this worth it?
yeah, I mean, looking at it in terms of when there was hyperinflation, and
Sure.
all of a sudden, I planned for the property appreciating 10%,
Yep.
appreciated 50%, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
So,
happens.
so I'm watching these properties that on paper, because they're still mine, I have, my net worth went up, a ton,
Yeah.
and now they're buying a property and there goes $100,000 of my net worth. You know what I mean? So I would say that, with that being the case, that can be a downside. But then when I learned to do the floating lease option,
Yep.
then it worked out fine. It worked out well. And some
Yep.
people might say, well, that works out well for you, but not them. I'm like, well, not exactly, because I also have something called a declining lease option. So if somebody wants to come in with a large option fee of like 10% of the value, somebody comes in on that $200,000 property that I sell for $220,000 and they give me $20,000, then they can buy the property now for $200,000. Now, even if it appraises for that today at $200,000, they have the right to buy it for $200,000 for now. And then the following year, I will say you can buy it for $197,000. Following year, you can buy it for $194,000.
Come on.
You know what I mean? So I decrease it. Now it isn't seller financing. They're not getting credit. I'm just lowering the strike price.
I love that.
And so if somebody wants to do that, they can do that. And I have actually somebody who they're not going to be able to qualify yet. They got some money, they can pay the rent, but because interest rates are high, it's going to be hard for them to qualify. And so I said, hey, look, I'm going to do this declining lease option for several years for you. They gave me, a 10% option fee. And so for them, I'm like, hey, we can go this, 10, 20, 30 years. And so I gave them this chart saying, hey, this is what it's going to look like. So it may look like a mortgage, but it's not. And there's actually an issue with title on that one that was totally the title company's fault. And so they have to still fix that, because they asked, can we do some seller financing? I'm like, I'd like to, but because of this title issue, we have to wait till they fix it, and then we can switch it over to seller financing.
And it's because this is a creative spin, the day in, day out traditional type of title and closing may look a little different. So so just common, simple mistakes happen. But
let me say this with regard to lease options. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know how to do them really well here in Arizona.
Yep.
And we had a lot of properties out in North Carolina, and we did some lease options out there. And so I'm familiar with them out there as well.
Sure.
Each state does lease options a little bit different. And in fact, the state of Texas, they frown upon lease options a lot. And so I don't teach people in Texas how to do them, because I don't know. I think there's some workarounds, but what I would say is if you want to do lease options in the state in which you're in, find somebody who's doing lease options really well.
Yes.
Find out how they do it. Make sure that it's an ethical person, that they're really helping people buy properties, and then learn from that person how to do lease options, because each state has its own certain nuances. Some states you have to record the option, like in North Carolina. Other states, you don't have to record the option. In Arizona, you don't have to record the option. We have a notary come and notarize the option agreements so that they have it, we have it. So it's, it's a legal document, it's enforceable. But anyway, so I would say if you want to do it, just learn from somebody who's doing it in your area. That's going to be the best bet, because what I say may not apply exactly to your specific state. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is so good. There's different rules, regulations, certain nuances that will definitely change state to state. So I did not know that about Texas. So it's a good eye opener there for sure. So talk to me about this real estate investing retreat down in Costa Rica. I mean, come on, is there anything better? That's like paradise, right?
No, there's absolutely nothing better.
Yeah, come on, let's go. So talk to me, how long you've been doing this? You have 2 per year, one that's for beginners in August roughly, and then you have experts that come in, experienced investors, actually at the end of April coming up, which is pretty exciting.
Coming up. Yeah. So, going back to the mastermind retreat that you and I were a part of, one thing I noticed, and I was the small fish in that pool of people, by the way. I had 200 units at the time, and it seemed like everybody else had many more than I.
Amen. That's the spot you want to be in for sure. Yeah.
And their net worths were all much higher than mine. And what I noticed is people were doing deals with each other. That was norm. That was
Yep.
the normal thing to do, is do deals with each other. And so I showed one of the people in the mastermind group this property that I saw come up online in Costa Rica, and it was this beautiful house in the mountains, and it had a guest house, and it had 360-degree views, and it was like the house that if you imagined, the drug lord living in, you're like, oh, that's the one that he lives in, right? So I saw that house, and I showed my buddy, I'm like, hey, dude, I want to buy this house. And he looked at it and said, I'm in, let's do this.
Yeah.
He said, I'll buy it with you. So then we, contacted the realtor, found out the story, found out, they do seller financing. We were working with them. At first they said yes, and then they said, no, we're not going to do seller financing. We're like, So it was about to fall apart, but then we said, well, why don't we get other partners? We brought in 8 of us, and then we purchased the house.
Wow.
And this house is, amazing. And when it comes to, investing in Costa Rica versus the United States, I make more money investing in the United States. It's easier, it's more routine, and I make more money. But I am much more happy with my properties in Costa Rica. Right? Those properties have a much higher return on happiness.
Yeah, come on. And you have to, honestly, so this is something people neglect. That triggered something for me because last year, Jen and I started looking for our dream home, right? And we were looking at some amazing, gorgeous places. And while we were very interested in submitting offers and like, yes, but we had a couple different options, we asked ourselves, hey, which one here is actually going to bring us more happiness? And which one's going to be more headache and, things that are away from our vision and our goals. And I think it's important to actually look at what's the ROI on this stuff. Like, where should I actually put my time and attention? So I love how you actually identified that and spotted that out. How many properties do you have over there?
So we have 3. We have this mountain house that I told you. And that one has 3 houses on the property, a total of 9 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms. Then we have one just really close to the ocean. It's a 3-minute walk to the beach. It has 6 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms. And then we purchased this house in the rainforest, and we popped the top. Have you heard of that before?
I've heard about it. I don't know exactly the reference you're talking about, but
we took the roof off.
Yeah.
And we added another story.
You did.
Yeah.
Let's go, dude.
So it was already 3 stories. Now it's a 4-story house. Has 10 bedrooms. 13 bathrooms, sleeps 30 people or more than 30 people. But it is just a really fun property. It's right off the lake in a place called La Fortuna. It's just a great, great place. And so
it's a little slice of heaven.
We're talking about this, but anybody wants to see these properties, if you go to CostaRicaPrivateResorts.com, then it shows all of the properties that we have. So it's CostaRicaPrivateResorts.com. And you can see all of these properties that we're talking about. Anyway, so these properties are really enjoyable. So what I do is, like with the mastermind retreat I'm going to be hosting here at the end of April, I'm bringing people that have 50 properties or more, have done 50 deals or more, and become a millionaire through real estate investing.
Yep.
Done it for 5 years or more. And so you go there and you're able to say, okay, this is where I'm at in my business. This is what I think I do really, really well.
Yeah.
This is where I'd like to go. This is what I think is stopping me, and this is what I don't do very well. And so then you can have the other people in this group that have come that are also performing at high levels be able to share with you feedback.
Yeah.
So it's really great because, your strength may not be somebody else's strength, and their strength might be your weakness. And so it's great to be able to connect with other people that have great ideas and that can really just help you improve your overall business and strategies. And that one conversation I had with Chris Crone has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's right.
Sometimes it's just a small conversation with somebody that opens up an idea that then leads to another idea that then leads to a business that all of a sudden creates millions of dollars.
It's crazy because they say success isn't always taught. Sometimes it's just caught from being in that environment, like you hanging out, you being the average of the 5 people you're spending the most time with. I think it's so true. I look back in time of like certain pivotal points that took me in this direction and led to this partnership, this relationship, this deal, and so forth. And it all has stemmed from a decision that I made to be in a location or invest in myself to be in a group 9 times out of 10, every single time. And that's why I'm addicted to be in in these mastermind groups and these connections and resources because of the just never ending flow of abundance, and people that are driven just like me don't want to settle for less and acknowledge like, hey, I want to be the small fish in this group, like you mentioned. It's like, that is the perfect spot to be in, because there's something that you can always give to others. You can bless other people with your knowledge because you have something special, that you personally got to get to your success level. But there's other levels to it, and there's other people in the room that can actually give you fresh vision, fresh downloads, fresh oil to actually break off certain things and help you in certain other areas. So I absolutely love it. I'm addicted to masterminds for that reason, because every single time when I look back, it's from being in these groups. So I love how you're actually set up a beautiful location, by the way. I can't wait to check out these spots. So throughout the rest of the year, are you doing Airbnb, I guess?
Yeah. So we rent them out through Airbnb, VRBO, and then also through direct booking. So
Cool.
Each property has its own website, and we've been working on the marketing and trying to get them more known. And they've been around for a few years now. Now they're starting to show up in the search engines and everything.
Yep.
And so
Good.
So we have some good bookings. Like, for instance, let's see, this year we have the beach house will book about 220,000 is what it has right now. I think it's going to end with 250 or more $1,000 for that house. And the one in the rainforest, I think, is going to go a little bit higher than that, maybe 260 to 280. And then the mountain house gets less bookings. It's less expensive. So that one last year brought in 150. I think it'll be a little bit more than that.
Come on.
But what's great about it is all of the owners get to go and enjoy the property for a week a year.
Yeah.
And sometimes a little bit more. And so, I mean, you go there with your family and just really get to enjoy this beautiful, beautiful location. And so that's one of the perks of being one of the owners. So that's cool. And I mean, if anybody's looking to invest, we are going to be building one more property out on the beach. It's going to be an 8-bedroom, like a 10-bathroom house, 3 stories, ocean views. So
heck yeah, dude. I love this. Dude, I'm gonna look at this right afterwards, because I've been wanting to take our leadership team for Credit Accounts Elite. I want to take our leadership team on a badass vacation sometime this summer, just to spoil them for all the hard work and so forth. And I just feel like, man, that just sounds so amazing.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
The cool thing is with Costa Rica, it's beautiful, but then there's a lot of fun excursions that you can do. So some of the like the 3 most fun excursions that we do. One is you go to this place called the Monkey House. Yeah. The Monkey House is some guy's backyard. It's like a little shack. And so we're like, hey, can we see the monkeys? He's like, yeah. And so you go back there, you pay him like $100, and then he gets crackers and he calls down the monkeys. And then the monkeys descend, and then they just hang out on you and they're crawling all over. It is super, super fun. It's one of the coolest things. And so done that several times. And then there's like these hot springs up in La Fortuna that are just like out of this world, just beautiful hot springs.
Say no more.
There's so much like volcanoes and waterfalls throughout the country. It's just, and those are just a few things. There's like
I know, yeah,
cool things to do there.
Man, don't get me too excited here. Come on, Shiloh, talk to me. How can people, if they are either a beginner for August, or if a lot of us experts like doing things last second and jumping into things, it's coming up at the end of April, which is in the next few weeks. How can they get a hold of you, and how could they book something like this and be a part of the community?
Sure. If you go to meetshiloh.com, so that's meetshilloh.com, that's my business card website. And so on there, you're going to see a lot of links to any of my social media. You're going to see links to Costa Rica Private Resorts. You can see the properties there. If you want to book something for your family or for retreats, things like that, you just reach out to me and say, hey, I'm interested in going on the mastermind retreat. There's a link there. You can read up on what we do each day and where we go and things like that.
Do you still have a couple of spots available currently?
I do. Yeah, I do.
As of the recording right now. So, I mean, hopefully,
taken up towards the end. But yeah, we have spots left for the one here in April.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, this is exciting, brother. I'm excited to see what you're doing with the retreats and the beautiful locations. Talk to me, what does the future look like for you and what are you thinking about the market in general for the next 12 months or so?
Good question. Man, I like to watch the news because it's like a soap opera.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's like the best drama ever.
It is right now.
I used to hate the news, and now it's like, stir it up, baby, stir it up.
It's interesting to see how many things are changing. So, with regard to the real estate market, I have no idea. I first thought, well, hey, if Trump comes in, when he was here, we had low interest rates and, we had appreciation, things like that. And then Biden went in, and then all of a sudden we had hyper appreciation.
Yeah.
And then interest rate doubled and everything slowed down, which wasn't cool for me. And so I don't know. But what I do know is I'm still buying.
Yep.
And the reason I'm still buying is because I buy properties under market value.
Yep.
And then, sometimes I'll do a good rehab. Sometimes I do less of a rehab, but I bring somebody in there as a lease option tenant. They have 3 years to exercise the option. And so for me, that's the model, and it works out pretty well. And so I just keep buying them under market value, and that works out really well. It's just like collecting things, collecting and planting. These like slow flips, right? So I'm still buying. And then what else in my future? What holds my future? Well, I'm excited to continue to stabilize my portfolio. We just purchased an assisted living facility, and I was actually there earlier today with my wife. It's called Fountain Assisted Living. It's here in Mesa, and we put this big fountain, like wall fountain, and we just turned it on. We have some plants there. It just looks really cool, and the residents really like it. We came in there, we purchased it. It's a 27-bed facility. Cool. And so
I thought you were going to say you were going to pop the top on that one too. I was like, oh.
I'm thinking, maybe. We'll see. But actually what we did is we got rid of this big, massive, a fireplace.
Yeah.
Which is massive, taking up a ton of space. Got rid of it, and then we opened up the skylight. And so it really brings in a lot more light in that kind of main sitting area. And we painted it this nice, calming blue color. Just the residents really like it. It's just really nice. You go in there and it feels really nice. And so I'm excited about that. I think that's going to do really well. And then just continue with the lease options, continue with these retreats. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking to do.
I love it, man. Well, I'm excited for you, brother. And everybody listening to this, obviously, like, we don't have the crystal ball. If we did, we would be much more richer than we are. But at the end of the day, you can live in abundance, you can make calculated decisions, and real estate can change your life in so many different ways if you're buying right, so buy right. It doesn't matter if the market is booming, if it's going down, if it's stagnant, or if it is what it is today. And the Fed, just announced the other day that they're staying strong, they're not moving. So we'll see what that looks like. But at the end of the day, you could still be making moves and making calculated, data-driven decisions, still making money in this market. So I pray that you guys take action in real estate, because what it's done for myself and Shiloh, I'm sure I could speak on it, it's been a game changer. So very grateful. Shiloh, anything that the audience could do to give back to you or myself to be able to support you in any way?
Yeah, I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. So you guys can go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to that. I post, different ideas and things like that when it comes to real estate investing. Have a lot of videos on lease options, have a lot of videos on mindset, how to purchase properties under market value, things like that.
Yeah.
And you can find that through going to my business webpage. So meetshiloh.com. You can find my YouTube channel link there. So that would be awesome. I'd love it.
Yeah, cool, man. I love that. Well, guys, definitely reach out, go share some love, and hit that subscribe button to Shiloh's new YouTube channel and lock in with him. If you have any questions, he's got a heart of gold to be able to serve and doing some amazing things. So it's a no-brainer. Guys, if you want to get a hold of me, you can always do so on Instagram. It's going to be Brandon Elliott Investments. Otherwise, on our business page for Instagram, it's Credit Counsel Elite. And speaking of which, if you're looking for funding, talking 2, 3, 4, or even up to $500,000 plus with interest rates as low as 0%. I did not stutter with that. With interest rates as low as 0%, we can show you actually how to get up to 90% approval odds, get massive amounts of funding, be able to liquidate it into cash, start businesses, grow and scale businesses, buy real estate, and so forth. and be able to make strong returns. So if you're looking to get more information about that, check out creditcounselelite.com. That's creditcounselelite.com. Has a quick 5-10 minute video on there that explains more, answers most of your questions, probably sparks even better questions to ask. Afterwards, you can jump on a quick call with myself or somebody on our team to understand where you're at and where you're looking to go. And our goal is to give you the roadmap to get there. So if you have any questions, make sure that you check that out at Credit Counsel Elite. If you haven't subscribed already to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast, I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't know. So you're going to want to do that right now. Hit that subscribe button. You'll get the newest notification every Monday when the new episode drops. Appreciate all the love and support. Keep that coming and not just hit the subscribe, but leave that 5-star review. So love you guys. Appreciate it and have a blessed week. We'll see you next time. Shiloh, greatly appreciate you, brother. Stay blessed, guys.
Thank you. See ya.
This has been another episode of Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast, brought to you by Brandon Elliott. For more information, please visit BrandonElliottInvestments.com. Also, please don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. Thanks again for joining. Until next time, God bless.